Today's Cowboys Report will break down some of the surprise cut candidates for Dallas after the 2024 NFL Draft. The Cowboys have roughly $5 million in salary cap space. It's not really an issue. That already includes paying of their rookies, like projected rookie payments, so don't worry too much about that one. Also, they free up a bunch of money if they ever pay Lamb or Dak. So money's not an issue right now, despite what they might tell you. There are actually a couple open roster spots for Dallas, but some players might be a bit more on the bubble following this year's draft. So name a player who you think ends up getting cut by the Dallas Cowboys. Doesn't have to be a surprise. Technically, not everyone on this list is a surprise cut candidate. Some obvious ones. Some might be more trade options there. But name a player who you think gets cut. First up is Damone Clark. And again, this one might be more of like a surprise trade candidate, although Dallas didn't add the volume of linebackers that I thought they might. Now, you save most of his $1.05 million cap hit if you release Damone Clark. And he was this team's leading tackler in 2023, which, as a reminder, isn't always a great way to evaluate a football player. And there were moments of Clark having some success. I think he will be better if he gets to be an off-ball linebacker as a weak side linebacker than having to be the off-ball middle linebacker. That is I think the better fit for Damone Clark. But I also think DeMarvion Overshown is going to be that weak side, that will linebacker, as opposed to the Mike. I think that's Eric Kendricks and probably Maurice Leofau behind him. So if you get great results from Leofau, Kendricks, and Overshown, and one of your UDFAs or like a Damian Wilson press, or you add somebody else, that could put Clark a little bit on the bubble. Next up is Sam Williams. This would be a surprise. He's due $1.7 million. That's not very much money. You could save $1.19 if you cut or trade him after June 1st. My concern with Sam Williams is I think he's going to be challenged in a good way by Mike Zimmer. But what happens if he doesn't respond to that challenge in the correct way? The sacks went up. The tackles went up from 2022 to 2023. The tackles for loss got cut in half. The pressure rate, which is a bit more stable year over year, went down slightly, and the penalties went up. Mike Zimmer has a doghouse. He will put players in that doghouse. You got Micah Parsons as your number one pass rusher. Tank Lawrence is going to play. He's a great fit for the Mike Zimmer scheme. I think Marshawn Nealon as a run stopper is a really good fit for the Mike Zimmer scheme. So if Sam Williams gets himself in the doghouse a little bit and is making mistakes in camp in the preseason, gets himself in legal trouble again, then I could see the Cowboys kind of being over it because the defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, is also no longer there. So is Sam Williams on the hot seat for you entering this preseason training camp timeframe? Y for yes, N for no. It's the pinned comment on today's video. So go vote, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube. Deshaun Wright, simply put, has not lived up to his top 100 pick status. I really hope that changes and that I look dumb for hating on that pick as much as I did. I am not confident that that is going to change. And with a $1.26 million cap hit, potential savings over $1 million of it, feels like he is very much in danger of not making this Cowboys roster. When they were decimated by injuries at corner, not last year but the year before that, they were signing Xavier Rhodes off the practice squad or off the free agency streets and signing him in there. They weren't even playing Deshaun Wright. They've already moved on from Kelvin Joseph. I would not be surprised if Deshaun Wright was next. Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, and I think Kalen Carson are roster locks. C.J. Goodwin probably makes it for special teams. Does Israel Mukuamu play corner or safety? He's also on the bubble at this time. Deshaun Wright has done some decent things on special teams, but I also wouldn't call him necessarily like some special teams superstar. And when you get to this point in the career, you kind of are hoping for more than just some defensive, or more than just special teams. He's fine there. Helps him make the roster. But if Goodwin's going to make it, that's 5 corners. Would they carry 7 to 8, including Mukuamu? I don't know. And that's why I think it could be a battle between Deshaun Wright and the next name on this list, Eric Scott Jr., who the Cowboys traded up for last year, giving up a future 5th-round pick to get that early 6th-round pick. He did not play in year 1. He redshirted. Plenty of theories that he was a Dan Quinn-focused draft pick. It's a massive camp and preseason for him. Because if Mike Zimmer says, I don't like this guy that much, he's easy to cut or trade, maybe to Washington in particular. I would, barring injuries, I'm going to bet that one of these two guys makes your 53-man roster. And maybe you get one of the practice squad too. But pick one to keep. NW for Deshaun Wright, ES for Eric Scott. Cooper Rush is on this list. And I think in particular, the rule changes for NFL teams, where now you are going to be allowed to make that emergency third quarterback available from the practice squad, as opposed to only being available on the active roster. I think it's going to negatively impact a lot of quarterbacks out there. Because a lot of teams are going to say, well, we'll put them on the practice squad, it'll be fine. So if you're not worried that much about them getting sniped, or in the case of Cooper Rush, you're a vested veteran, and you don't have to go through waivers, you say, hey, we're going to put you on the practice squad, be our emergency third QB, that makes sense. You save a bunch of money by cutting him, you still pay him some of it, was owed guaranteed, and he gets those practice squad checks, etc., plus the game day call-up checks. Cooper Rush has been a good bus driver. And you've seen that over the course of an NFL career. When you're not playing the Eagles or the best teams, he can go out there, guide the offense, mostly be accurate. He's not nearly as accurate as Dak Prescott is. But he's also not going to be a playoff caliber quarterback. He's a bus driver. And you want a smart football bus driver as one of your backups. But if and hopefully when Trey Lance plays great and in the preseason earns that number 2 role, you'll keep Lance as quarterback too. And then you could try to get Cooper Rush down to the practice squad. Now, Ezekiel Elliott will be wearing number 15 this year. You can get his jersey by going to chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. The default one on Fanatics is still the 21, but you can find the 15. You just got to click the drop-down options. That link, chatsports.com/Zeke jersey, will take you to it. So check the comment section and the description if you want to get the Zeke Elliott 15 jersey in time for week 1 this year, because he is not on the surprise cut candidate list. They guaranteed him too much money. He ain't going to get cut. Josh Ball. You guys very much know how I feel about Josh Ball, and we don't need to rehash it today. But to make note, he's due $1.04 million. All these numbers per over the cap, by the way. And you save almost all of that what they cut. He played a little bit in the preseason. Wasn't that bad. Actually was decent in the ground game, although a lot of those were very much against third-string defensive linemen. We all remember the Texans game, I believe it was, where he almost got Dak killed, almost cost them the game, and they had to flip somebody else in there. It ended up saving the game, and they won that game in the end. Offensive line depth is more volume-filled than previous years. That also puts Matt Waletzko on the roster level. He has size, he has talent, athletic ability, but he can't stay healthy. The shoulders have been a significant issue in his time in the NFL. It saved basically all of his money by cutting him. It's just some leftover signing bonus stuff. There's no more guaranteed base salary things from that perspective. He wasn't as good in the preseason, but also was working ahead of Josh Ball, so getting better offensive linemen. Hasn't played much in the regular season either. The numbers don't add up, and that's probably a good thing for the offensive line, because Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Martin, Steele, I would also argue Bass and Hoffman are going to make this team. That's 7. They like to put draft picks on here. That's 8 with Nathan Thomas. They paid Udoga not enough that he couldn't be cut, but that he probably makes it. That's 9. So then it's Awesome Richards, a 5th-round pick last year, Matt Waletzko, Josh Ball. Math ain't mathin' for those guys. I think at best, barring injuries, one of these 2 players makes the team. So pick one to keep. JB for Josh Ball, WM for Matt Waletzko. Get those predictions or responses, I should say, in the comments of today's show. This one might not surprise too many. Peyton Hendershot, since he was the surprise cut candidate last year. In fact, had John Stevens not torn his ACL, he was probably going to get cut. In the end, the injury kind of saved him, and he didn't do a whole lot in the end. As a former UDFA, there's almost zero guaranteed money left on his contract. It's some leftover signing bonus stuff he already got. The tight end room has options. Jake Ferguson is tight end 1. Luke Schoonmaker is tight end 2. Hendershot, John Stevens. I think if we keep the trend of a UDFA about to make the rosters almost 2 years in a row, go back to Blake Jarwin. Brevin Spann-Ford stands out there. They gave Princeton Fant some run, mostly on special teams this past season. Do you want your tight end 3 to be a pass catcher? Or do you want him to be a blocker? If they really want the blocker angle, it's not bode well for Hendershot. Now, if and when the Cowboys make cuts, even if it's just roster cut down time, we will have a video for you. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. You got to put Deuce Vaughn on here. There's a lot of running backs. Frankly, of your 7 backs on the roster, one of them, I think, is actually guaranteed a roster spot. Now, Deuce Vaughn didn't play much in 2023. Needs to find a role. I think the role they used him in is like late game grinder, which was kind of like, well, it was how it was going to be outside of a package for him. That's not a good role for him. Need him to make an impact on special teams. He has not done so far. That's a big issue. When you're RB3 or 4 and you don't help on special teams, tough to find a role for you. Vaughn did not produce very well last season. The running ability was the yards were terrible. The situations were also bad. It was almost always end-of-game scenarios with behind a shaky offensive line. It's just never going to go well. Did flash some as a pass catcher, which I don't think should be overlooked. But look at this running back room. Ezekiel Elliott, with the way it's kind of structured, is going to be on the team. Everyone else up for grabs. Can Deuce Vaughn carve out that third down pass catcher role? If he can, he'll make it. Maybe they want to use him more on returns. They want 2 guys, Vaughn and Turpin, back there. But he's got to earn a spot. And that also goes, I think, for the best running back on the roster. And that's Rico Dowdle. I think he is the best football player, the best back right now at this stage in their career. Clearly not career-wise. On the team. But look at his contract. $1.26 million, $200,000 guaranteed. That is not the type of contract that is given to a player that says, you know what? This guy's clearly going to make the roster. No doubts about it. He is locked in to this football team. There is a scenario in which the Cowboys go, we're fine. He got $200,000 guaranteed. Royce Freeman, meanwhile, got $65K. So neither of those guys are guaranteed a spot. Dowdle, I thought, played pretty well in a smaller role this past season. I would have liked to give him a bigger role as well, especially with the way he played on third downs and short yards. I thought he was more effective at times than Tony Pollard was. Dallas didn't give him a chance. He's always been a bit banged up too. No guarantee Dowdle makes this team, even though I think he's the best back right now on the roster.